Hello dear channel, welcome to this new video. So people are already starting to buy and to use my new Almighty Gems settings asset, and some of them are super beginners, so we need to learn the most basic things for using Blender and using the asset. This video is for you. Okay, so when you get the asset, you download the file from Blender Market. It's in normal Blender file. It means that you don't need to install it or put it in a specific directory for the file to work. It's a normal Blender file. So to open a Blender file, you have several options. If Blender is installed as an application, you can simply double click on your file and it's going to open Blender and it's going to open the file. Also note that the file has a lot of content, so it's going to take a little while to open. There are many things inside the file, and here we are. That's one way of opening the file. Now, another way of opening a Blender file is opening Blender, just like this. We have the splash screen right here. In other versions of Blender, you'll have another image. Splash screen is this window here. The rest is the Blender interface. To open a file, go to File menu, here, Open, and locate in your system, on your drives, wherever you save the asset file. That is the normal Blender file. You can double click it or just open it down here. Also, like I said earlier, be patient. It's not going to open in 1 second. It's going to take a little while more, and now the asset is open. The Blender file is open. It means you don't have to turn on an add-on. You don't have to install it in a special directory. Now, a third way of opening Blender files, Blender is already opened and the location of the asset file is already opened. I have it here in my directory and I can drag and drop, and Blender here is going to ask me if I want to open it. Yes, I want to open it. And again, be patient. It's not going to open in 1 second. Here we are. This is a third way of opening a Blender file. Now we need to learn about the general interface of Blender. The main area is called the 3D viewport. You can navigate the 3D viewport using your mouse, keyboard, and the 3D gizmo icons up here. To navigate the 3D viewport, it's strongly recommended to have a mouse with 2 buttons and 1 middle wheel. The middle wheel is also a button. Using the middle wheel, you can zoom out and you can zoom in. By clicking the middle wheel, you can rotate the 3D view. When you press and hold the Shift key on your keyboard and press the middle wheel, you can move the 3D view. In a similar fashion, you can use the icons of the 3D gizmo to navigate the 3D view. When left-clicking on the 3D gizmo, you can rotate the 3D view. When clicking the axis smooth sphere, you're going to go directly to these specific views. Top view, bottom view, right side view, left side view, front view, back view. By left-clicking the gizmo again, you will rotate the view again. With the magnifier icon, you can zoom out and zoom in. With the hand icon, you can move the 3D view. And if you have a camera set in the scene, this will lead you to the camera view. You will recognize the camera view with the passe-partout. That's this darker area is called the passe-partout. It makes a differentiation between what the camera sees inside its area and the outside. That's what you don't see from the camera. Here we have the menus for the viewport, and here we have the menus for Blender. Then we have the different modes. What you see here is Blender 3.6. Earlier versions are going to look different, but you will be able to recognize the elements even if they're placed somewhere else. even if the color is different. Maybe the gray is much lighter in your window, in your interface. The size of the icons might be different. The placement might change. The look of the icons might change. The amount of menus and text might be different. But generally, these elements have been the same for a long time. You should be able to start having visual references on the screen so you can start understanding what the different elements are. Now, talking about the window sizes, I can drag here vertically because it's a separation between areas. And here I can drag horizontally because it's a separation between areas. So this area here is a 3D viewport. The area here on the bottom right side is called the properties area. Now up here, this list with many names and much text and many small icons here. This is the outliner area. All the elements in the scene will appear here as text with very small icons indicating what each element is. Get familiar with that name because in many tutorials, you're going to hear the word outliner pretty often. So you know where to go and where to make the things that the manual is saying, that the person making the tutorial is saying, so you don't get lost. This is the outliner. And now we have to talk about one of the most obvious problems that you're going to face with the interface is what happens if I start losing all the configuration of what I'm seeing on screen. Everything gets changed to very bizarre things. I don't have the outliner anymore. I don't have the properties anymore. I don't have the 3D viewport anymore. I just destroyed the interface. I destroyed the areas distribution. Maybe here I clicked on something and it changed everything. Some text appeared, some icons disappeared. The entire interface is ruined. I am lost. What you need to learn right from the start is that there is a simple option in the file menu. Go down here to defaults and load. This is very important. Go to load factory settings. And beware, if you save the startup file, the destroyed windows that you have here is going to get saved as the starting window. So it's going to be a double disaster. So be very careful. Okay, so I clicked and confirmed the load default settings and I'm back to the start, but I'm not in my file. I was in my 3D Jewelry gem settings asset file and now I'm at the beginning of a Blender file. The entire layout, the interface is back to normal and I can see the 3D viewports, I can see the properties and I can see the outliner. Now I need to open, my asset Blender file again. So I can go to open recent. If I've just opened it, it's right here and I can open the file again. Now we're going to see another situation, another peculiar and problematic situation that you can face when the broken interface and layout in Blender, but it's saved in a file by mistake, obviously. But if you're a beginner, by mistake, you saved. The layout is the distribution of areas. Just opening my asset file, by example, I'm like this. I don't recognize it at all. So this is catastrophic. This is a huge problem here because I'm not seeing the list of elements in the asset because this is not the outliner. So this won't work. I'm totally lost and I can't understand what I'm seeing on the screen. But I do have the settings asset opened here in Blender. The file is correctly opened, but the layout, the areas, the interface, the windows have a completely changed distribution and settings and naming, everything has been changed. So what can I do? Let's go to File, Open. Here, locate the directory where you have your 3D Jewelry Gems settings asset, Blender file. And here at the right, the top right icon, the toggle region right here, it might be opened or might be closed. You need to open it. There's an option that says Load UI. The UI is the user interface. So, how to properly use this? Let's come out of this. Let's cancel. Let's go back to your catastrophic user interface. And first, go to File, Defaults, Load Factory Settings. Confirm Load Factory Settings right here. And we already know what that's going to do. So as we know, I've just loaded the factory settings, the default settings, and I'm back to my normal user interface. So now what can we do? We can go to File, Open, and we go to our asset file. And here, what we're going to do, and very important, we're going to uncheck, remove this option. We are not going to load the user interface, because if by mistake you have a wrong user interface into any file, all mixed up, because we don't want the bad user interface to load again. We want the default interface to be here when opening the file. So we uncheck the load user interface, double click on our asset file or click on the open icon, and now Blender is opening the file. Just wait a small moment, and here we are with the asset opened. I have the 3D viewport here, I have the properties here, and up here I have the outliner with all the text and all the elements inside the asset. So I'm not lost anymore. I'm back to the normal user interface. So now that we are all starting with the default interface, here we have in the outliner all the collections by name for the settings. Now each shape is one collection by name. The Asher, the baguettes, the cushion, the emerald, the heart, the marquise, the oval, the pear, the round, the square, and the trillion, cut and shape. These are all the collections for the shape of gemstones and settings, because we are here for the settings. Now here, some small visual detail, the background colors. That's a quick preoccupation, but it must be answered. Maybe you are worried because in your file, you don't have the same background colors. There is a very easy way to change the background color. Let's go up here in this small shading option, viewport shading, and here it says background. We're going to go to viewport, and now it's a light blue. Maybe that's what you have. Actually, in the original asset file, I chose this light blue color for the viewport background. So if you don't like it, or if you want the same color, you can change it here with the color wheel, maybe lighter, maybe darker. Maybe you want a gray. So let's go to white, RGB1, and then let's make it darker. Here maybe, so I can see the grid and the other elements. Okay, now let's start talking about the outliner and what we see or don't see. Because maybe here you're not seeing the same as I am. And that's because here we have restriction toggles for filters. These are different elements that can help us show or hide from the outliner what we see or don't see in the 3D viewport. Now, if you don't see that option, is because I can remove the filters. Here, there is nothing to select, and that might be your first problem. Yes, you do see all the elements and collections inside the scene collection, but you can't hide or unhide them because you don't have the icon here to do that, to show or hide in 3D Viewport. So in the filter, you need to toggle the hide in viewport filter. Now the toggle is set, and it means that I have the small I here, and also for the other elements. Now I can show and hide the elements from the 3D viewport. And to do that, you need to turn on this toggle here, the hide in viewport. It's a small I. That's what the icon represents. So the toggle is turned on here in the filter. The filter's icon is a small funnel. Here, by example, the only collection that is visible is the Asher Settings 3D Jewelry collection. I know that because it's white and the other texts are grayed out. And also that's because the hide in viewport icon is only active on this collection. If you see all the other collections, they don't have the visibility turned on, so they are hidden. We can't see them in the 3D viewport. If I hide it, now there's nothing to see in the 3D viewport. There's nothing to manipulate because I can't select it here in the 3D viewport because all the collections are hidden from the 3D viewport. So if I want to see the round settings, I need to turn on the visibility here with the small I icon to show it in the 3D viewport. And what happens if you show everything at once? I'm going to do that with all the collections that are set here in the asset. And I'm going to show all the collections for all the gemstones. So what we get is this amazing structure. Obviously, this would not be very practical. So that's why when you open the asset, there's only the Asher setting showing on screen. When you open the collection, you have the subsequent collections for the different variants. So maybe you want the halo to show here. You can choose to show the white plate version instead of the tight row right there. Thanks to this little eye icon. That is a filter that you need to toggle up here so you can show and hide your objects in the asset. Now here we're going to start a basic customization, a simple modification, something you want to personalize for your setting. So here I have the round settings, the round faceted setting types, and this one is the round basket setting with 4 prongs. We can see them here in the outliner. I have the belt structure and I have the base. Now, I really advise you to save as a new file. So here it's in red. It means you need to put up a new name. So modified and save as before you do any modification. Later on, we'll see how to append elements to a new file. For now, if you're going to modify something, don't do it on the original file. Save as a new modified file and you'll be just fine. I might want to customize my prongs. So for that, we need to learn that we are here in object mode and we see the object and manipulate the object. But the objects are built from vertices and curves, and to work on that we need to go to edit mode. Now beware, because the edit mode looks exactly the same as the object mode. The only difference might be the menus right here, the icons here on the left, this menu here, but otherwise it looks exactly the same. I know I am in edit mode because here it says edit mode, and that's all there is to see. It looks exactly the same, but what it operates is very, very different. So you need to beware. Here I can see a small black dot that I can select. Here I see another black dot, and down here there's another one. These are control points with handles, because this prong is a curve. So I can change the position of the control points and the handles to change the shape of the curve. So I can move them with the move tool right there. A gizmo, this is a 3D gizmo with the 3-axis, the x-axis in red, the y-axis in green, and the z-axis in blue. That's an international 3D standard for colors of the 3-axis in 3D. Okay, so I can grab the Z gizmo here, the blue one, and I can drag it up here. That's basically what I would do. Now I'm going to drop it right here, the left mouse button here. I'm dragging it, and when I let go, it sets right here. So this is what I want to change. If I want to manufacture the prongs, I want the prongs to be longer. So I have more metal in real life. That's after 3D printing, after casting in gold. When I'm finishing the real jewel in real life, I want prongs to be long enough to properly grab my gemstone and have enough metal to do the work in real life. Instead of having them down here, that's how they look when they're finished. In real life, they're short, they're setting on the gemstone, grabbing the gemstone from above slightly. So this is a bit too short for manufacturing. So here I want to grab this on the z-axis and bring it up here like this. So that's what I can do in edit mode on a curve, grabbing the control point and moving it. Okay, now let's exit edit mode. It means let's go back to object mode here. Now you can see that the prong is selected, but we can't see the control points and the handles anymore. And we only know that we are in object mode because here it says object mode. So now I've customized this 4 prongs round basket setting, and I want to 3D print it. I want to send it to my 3D printer. So how do we do that from Blender? So first, there's the gemstone here. Well, the gemstone, we're going to hide it from the viewport. So now I have the prongs, the belt, and the base. These 3 elements, I want to print the full basket setting. So I need to select the base. Now with the shift key, I'm going to select the belt and the prongs. I made the selection using the right click mouse button and holding down the shift key on my keyboard. If you have configured Blender to select with the left click mouse button, you're going to make the selection with the shift key, hold down on your keyboard, and making left clicks with the mouse button. It depends how you configured the selection in your version of Blender and your preferences. Now that the elements are selected, I'm going to go to File, Export, and we're going to export this as the STL file format. This is the file format the most used for 3D printing. So let's click here in File, Export, STL. Now, know something. Here in the toggle region options, open this, and something very, very, very important is that you are going to export selection only. only the selected elements, only the prongs, the belt, and the base that's selected in the file. That's what I'm going to export. It's very important. Otherwise, and that's a very big warning, otherwise you are going to export the entire file, and this file is huge. It has hundreds and hundreds of elements that are going to export if you don't have selection only selected. So if you export the entire file, basically you're going to freeze your computer. So very important, selection only. We're going to export these elements as an STL file. So for the STL file, for the name, put a pretty good describing name. This is going to be the round 4 prongs basket for STL printing. So I know what it is. And now that selection only is selected, my name is good, a descriptive name, export STL. So now the export is really fast. The export is already done. I'm back here. But if your computer is pretty old, is pretty slow, it might take a moment. So the screen is going to freeze for a moment. It's going to go slightly white maybe for a moment. You might see the clock on your cursor for a moment when exporting the STL file. But generally, especially when you don't have much elements, it should be pretty fast. And especially if you correctly exported the selection only, because we don't have that many elements. So the STL file is going to be light. So it works pretty fast. Okay, so now I have exported the prongs, the belt, and the base in one STL file. What do I need to do now? So now we need to go to another software. I need a software to check and, if necessary, repair the STL. But before printing, before sending that STL file to your printer, there's 2 steps you need to do. Check and repair the STL, that's 1 step. And 2, you need to make the supports and slice the file, that's the 2nd step, in order to send that file to your printer. You can't send a Blender file like this. You can't send that to your printer, nor can you send the STL file directly to your printer, talking about resin printers. Because when we're going to print something this small, like this basket setting, that is only roughly 8 millimeters in real life, we're going to print that in resin. We're not going to use an FDM printer for that. FDM printers are not precise enough for this type of jewelry printing. So really, the option for jewelry is resin printing. It's important for the resolution, for the precision of the very small elements that we print. Okay, so now what do? We need to go to a check and repair software. So one of the most famous freely available software, you need to register to download it, but it's free with the basic functions. And believe me, most of the time the basic functions are enough. It's called NetFab. And I work most of the time with NetFab Basic, like this version. So this is another software. This is not Blender. So here we need to go to Project, Open, and here I need to locate the STL that I exported from Blender, my round 4 prongs basket for STL printing or 3D printing. And here it is. This is my basket in the STL file format. And my basket came from my Blender 3D jewelry settings asset. This is in Blender. This is in NetFab. And here I have opened the STL file. Now here, this STL file is checked, but that only means that this STL can now be prepared with the 3D printer software to receive the support and the base for printing and to be sliced, you can't yet just send this STL to your 3D printer, even if it has been checked. It still needs supports and slicing to be then finally sent for 3D printing. Now I'm going to open a damaged STL file, one that I know that it's damaged. So I've prepared a damaged file. Here I remove a couple of edges and vertices from my mesh, from my STL. So I damaged it. And what happens, we have a huge warning here telling us that something is damaged. So we need to make a repair. Repair, automatic repair, default repair, execute. The repair has been executed. We need to apply the repair. We're going to remove the old damaged part. Click here, and now this element is repaired. The warning is gone. We need to save the repair. For that, we go to Part, Export Part. The part is selected. Export as STL again. And I'm going to call this the repaired round 4-prong basket. And I'm going to save it. Sometimes you have some other warnings when exporting your STL. Some details need to be repaired specifically. So the software is going to warn you and it's going to repair them when you click OK for the reparation, for the extra reparation. And now that was the basic default reparation here in NetFab Basic, and exported the repaired STL. The STL is checked, the STL is repaired. I need to prepare it for resin 3D printing. Okay, now I'm here in my 3D printer software. So I have a Creality Halot 1. So this is the Halot box software for the Creality Halo printer. So obviously your printer is going to have a different software. Everything's going to be different, the colors, the icons, the options. But what we have to do is exactly the same process, no matter your software, no matter your printer. The logic is always the same. So first, I need to open the STL file that I want to print, and I need to prepare it for printing with supports and slicing. So here I have my round 4-prongs basket. We checked it, we repaired it. So now here it is. This small it is. Like I said, that's why we want a resin printer. Okay, so here my object now needs support. So you need to go to your supports settings, and you can use the basic setting, and we're going to use the auto support. That's going to create the platform and the bottom supports. So all the supports, okay? So this file is very small. This is all the supports it needs. Maybe I want to add a support to the belt. So here I'm going to click there, there, and there. On the red zones that are the bottom parts, I'm adding some supports. So the supports are ready. I have the platform, very small one. I've added some supports manually because, well, generally a couple more of supports is always a good practice. Now we need to slice. So let's go to slicing, and the slicing is done with your print parameters, depending your printer and depending the resin you're going to use. And all these settings are given by the printer's manufacturer and the resin manufacturer. Obviously, they're not always easy to find, that I can agree. And you need to know it's not necessarily very easy to find the exposure times and all the specific speeds and all the layer thicknesses, because that depends on the exposure time, the type of resin, the capabilities of your resin printer. But generally, nowadays, it's easier to find them in the softwares, in the forums of your printer's manufacturer, in the forums of the resin manufacturer. And most of the time, printers come with presets for specific resins. Nowadays, it's a lot easier. So use the default settings for that specific printer and that specific resin, and you should have no problem. I've been doing printing for more than 8 years now. Things have gotten a lot cheaper and a lot easier. Okay, the slicing is done. Here we can see all the layers. So it's always nice to play with the slice viewer, with the layers viewer, because with time and experience, you'll be able to spot if there is a problem of maybe a layer that's not connected to the other ones. And here we are with the slice ready. So this file is the file that I'm going to save here on my disk. And this is the slices from the round 4 prongs basket. Okay, the file format is your printer's file format. So it means that it's specific to your printer, to your printer's software, because the settings for the printing come in the file. So you really should use your printer's software and your printer's settings. Now I'm going to save. There you go. It's saving. There it goes. It's saving. Save. Now I can open the local folder and I can see my saved file here, the slices for the round 4-prong basket. There it is. And this is the file that I'm going to send to my printer. So if you have Wi-Fi with your printer, you can just send it from the software to the printer. The printer is going to receive the data, and this file is ready for printing. It was a checked STL, a repaired STL. Then we made the supports for the object for printing. Then we made the slicing in the 3D printer software. Then we saved the slices file, and the slices file is what I send to my printer. So you can send it using Wi-Fi if you have Wi-Fi installed between your computer and your printer. Otherwise, most printers like mine, they use a USB. So I save the file to a USB and I go to the printer, I plug the USB, and the printer takes the file from the USB. It recognizes the file format because it's the 3D printer's file format. It will recognize the format, load the settings, and then I can start my resin printing. Now we are here with the asset opened. So you already learned how to work with the general interface of Blender, with the areas, with the filters to show and hide in the viewport. But I said something very important that we need to learn is how to append an element from this asset, because you don't need to open the asset file over and over again and modify things in the original asset file. Actually, I don't recommend it. You should not open the asset file unless you want to really have a look at all the elements in the asset in the original asset file. But to work with the different settings, it's better to append the elements you need in your other Blender file that you're working on. So we need to learn to append a file element into another file. So we need a new general file. Okay, so here I'm in a new general file in Blender. Now we're going to learn how to append. Let's go to File, Append. Now I need to locate the original file that has the elements that I want to bring, because we're going to append, we're going to bring elements from another Blender file, in this case, the 3D Jewelry settings asset, and we're going to double click here on my original file. So we're going to have a long list of the different aspects of the file. because there are many things that we can append. All the elements from the other files, like the camera, the textures, the materials, the images, the world environment, or the HDR illumination, all the aspects that compose my other Blender file, I can append to use it in my new file. So what we have that we can easily append are the collections, and here are all the collections with their proper name, with all the variants that we need, with all the variants that are in the asset. So they are by name, by the gemstone shape. So by example, I want a heart basket setting. This one has two variants in the collection. So we're going to append this, and this is what we get. Now here in the outliner, we have all the elements from that collection. They have been appended to my new Blender file. So obviously I have some things overlapping because, like I said, this heart basket has two variants. One is with the white prongs that we can see here, and the other one is with the round prong. So you can go and hide, by example, the round prongs. So that's why it was very important to learn how to use the show and hide filter right here. So now I can hide what I don't need. And here I have this heart basket setting with the white prongs. And we have already learned how to export this as an STL file for 3D printing. Now here I don't have the gemstone, so I need to append the gemstone. So let me go to File, Append, and we're going to go to the objects. Now we're going to search the gemstones because the gemstones always start with gemstone in their name. And the gemstone I need is gemstone heart faceted. Here it is. Now I have appended the heart gemstone for this basket, and I can keep working on anything I want to do with this setting here in my new file. I want to design a ring, I want to design a necklace, I want to design some earrings, so I can append anything I need. Now maybe I want to append some pear shape setting. So let's go to File, Append, and we're going to go to the collections right here, and we're going to search quickly for the pear shaped settings. So I want a pear cabochon setting. This one has two variants. Double click here. Now I can hide the heart basket up there, and I can work whatever I need with this pear-shaped cabochon setting. So as you see, it's very easy to append any element that I need in my new Blender file for my jewelry designs. And using the settings asset is going to help you a lot in your jewelry designs in Blender. This is the end of this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Take care and see you soon.